Given the stories breaking both on the campaign trail and in our nation's capital today, we're interrupting our regular programming so that we can conduct a live interview with former Florida governor and current presidential candidate Jeb Bush, who joins us via satellite from New Hampshire. Jeb, we really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, JD. Hope everything's going well.
It's a busy day, and I know it's been busy for you on the campaign trail. To wit, the Reuters tracking poll has you now in third place behind Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, and yet another survey has you moving up to second in New Hampshire. Jeb, do you feel momentum coming your way, and what do you think's driving it?
Well, I do. I think we're making good, steady progress here in New Hampshire. In South Carolina, there was a favorable poll. It's still a long way to go. People are making up their minds late. And I'm going to campaign with heart. We're going to spend 4 days here in New Hampshire. We've got incredible number of volunteers. We're making more calls. We're knocking on more doors. And that's what matters in a retail state like New Hampshire. So I feel good about where we are. We've got a good distance to go. But the record of accomplishment that I have compared to my worthy competitors and the ideas that I have to radically change the culture in Washington and move us in a better direction in terms of economic growth and national security seems to be resonating.
Jeb, we've heard that your super PAC, Right to Rise, which of course operates independently of your campaign, just sent out mailers in New Hampshire with a video of your years as the governor of Florida. What do you hope that video conveys to New Hampshire voters about your Florida record?
Well, it's important to tell the Jeb story. I have a story of cutting taxes, of shrinking the government, of taking on powerful interests, of reforming our education system, of being one of 2 states to go to AAA bond rating when I was there, of having reserves that were equal to 35% of general revenue, something that Washington, D.C. needs to learn from. And that story people don't necessarily know. And it's a way for people to get to know me, and then I go campaign about the ideas that going forward, what the future looks like if we apply conservative principles again and apply conservative ideas to reform the mess in D.C. Look, Hillary Clinton is going to be tough to beat, even though she's under investigation by the FBI. We need someone with a proven record and detailed plans to restore our greatness through conservative principles, and I think I'm that guy.
Well, since you raised the specter of Hillary Clinton, let me ask you this question right now. Obviously, she's the presumptive nominee of the Democrats, though it's far from final. More and more, we're hearing reports, especially from a senior inspector general, about classified material she sent to her personal servers. Knowing what we now know from these numerous press reports, do you believe Hillary broke the law? And if she did so, should she be prosecuted?
If she did break the law, she of course should be prosecuted. I don't know if she's broken the law. What I do know is she's untrustworthy. She hasn't told the truth. She's tried to hide the fact that she basically had a private server to protect her personal ambition at the expense of national security. And the FBI is investigating this. I don't remember a front-running candidate for president under investigation by the FBI, and that investigation apparently is widening. And so that lack of trust is so important because people do not believe their government works for them anymore. And imagine a president that doesn't have the confidence of the American people because she can't tell the truth.
Do you believe the Obama Justice Department will act on what the FBI comes up with in the investigation, or do you expect politics to reign supreme?
Well, it's the most politicized Attorney General and Department of Justice in a long while, and so I have doubts whether they'll do the right thing. I don't know what the information is. None of us do. I think the process needs to be going forward, but at a minimum, she's not telling the truth. She has withheld the truth to the American people. And compare that to my life, where I've unveiled 33 years of tax returns. The FBI didn't have to tell me to release my emails. I released them, 300,000+ of them. You can go to jebemails.com and look at my emails. I wrote a book about the transparency of emails and why it was important to serve people. I had nothing to hide as governor. I've been the most scrutinized candidate probably on the stage. And she is, every step along the way, she's done the exact opposite. She's tried to cloak what she's doing. She's focused on her ambition rather than service. I mean, look, she's had, in 8 years as a United States Senator, JD, she had 3 bills that she sponsored that became law. Renaming a highway, naming a monument, and naming a post office. This is all about the next step for her. And I don't think we need politicians in D.C. that are pursuing their ambition at the expense of service to people that are really struggling right now.
Let's return to this Republican race as it stands right now. Trump still seems to be the man to beat. Now, it's been interesting that two prominent radio hosts, Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh, strongly criticized Trump for attacking Ted Cruz as a, quote, nasty man. Do you think Donald Trump is himself a nasty man?
He's a junkyard dog, that's for sure. I seem to be the target of most of his attacks. I don't know why he's so worried about me. Maybe he thinks that I'm a real threat to him, because I am. I'm the only guy that has taken him on. I think Mark and Rush are right that he is not a committed conservative. There's nothing in his record that suggests to me that he's a conservative. He supports more Democrats over his adult life than Republicans. He wasn't pro-Second Amendment until this year. He hasn't been pro-life consistently, to the contrary. He believes that eminent domain power should be used for private purposes, his own purposes, of course. He tried to take by eminent domain a home of an elderly woman, and she took him to court, and she won. But he wanted to tear down that home and build a parking lot for limousines for his casino. He's gone bankrupt 4 times and says that's a victory, when in fact it's a loss for his own equity investment, but more importantly for all the employees that lost their jobs and the vendors that lost their business. So this is a guy that is not a conservative. He's an incredible personality. Don't get me wrong. He fills the space, and he's captured this sense of frustration that people have about Washington. But if you're looking for someone who has a steady hand, and someone who can be from day one be commander-in-chief, and someone who is a committed conservative by their actions, not by Johnny-come-lately kind of talk, then Trump's not your guy.
Jeb, you just referenced...
I'm your guy.
And that's why you're out on the campaign trail. Governor, you referenced some position reversals by Donald Trump on issues near and dear to conservatives, going as far as single-payer health care. You mentioned eminent domain. And yet today, really tonight, he received the endorsement of Governor Sarah Palin. Why do you think Donald Trump wins over conservatives like Sarah Palin?
I can't explain Sarah Palin's support. I do respect her as her consistent commitment to the pro-life cause and the cause of supporting the disabled. We share a common bond in that regard. She's gifted in many ways. I can't explain why she's endorsing this guy, but all I'm saying is the record shows that Donald Trump is not a conservative. It's about him. It's about him, and that's not how we serve. We need a commander-in-chief that understands how the world works and believes in America's leadership in the world. I mean, just take ISIS for a moment. And at the end of September, Donald Trump said that we didn't have a dog in the fight. Then he said, let Russia take care of ISIS, even though they have no interest. Putin flatters him, and he basically says Russia could be an ally, when in fact they're doing everything they can to prop up the brutal Assad regime. He's all over the map. And he's not a serious candidate in that regard. And little by little, I think people, while they may like the fact that he has taken on the establishment and calling people in D.C. a bunch of idiots, people are going to have to wonder whether he's capable of being a serious commander-in-chief and a president that can get things done. And my hope and my belief is that as Americans start to figure this out and sort this out, particularly Republican primary voters, they're going to want to know someone with a proven record that has detailed plans and has done it already, as I did in Florida.
Jeb, you raised the specter of ISIS and foreign policy, national security, an issue of major concern. Indeed, Lindsey Graham made that the cornerstone of his campaign before bowing out and endorsing you. Why do you think Lindsey came to the conclusion that you're the choice for commander-in-chief and not someone else like, say, Marco Rubio or Chris Christie?
Well, look, Lindsey has served with 3 of the candidates running for president, the United States senators. He's seen firsthand how they may like him. He may think that they're gifted in some ways, but he's seen how they've approached things. He's seen how they've backed away from a consistent commitment to keep us safe as it relates to this threat of terror. And he saw how I outlined the most detailed plan to take out ISIS prior to the Paris tragedy and to the San Bernardino killings. And so I think he knows that I have a steady hand, that I believe, like he does, in a strong national defense, that we need to rebuild our military, and I have a detailed plan to do that, and that as a commander-in-chief, I will have the backs of the military. The one thing that he asked me when he said, I want to support you, is don't ever waver in supporting the troops. And I will not waver. We need to rebuild our military. We need to make sure that they have the systems and the training and the support that they deserve, and when they come home, to get the care in the Veterans Administration that they deserve. And that's my commitment to Lindsey, and more importantly, that's my commitment to the troops and to the American people. And he is on board, and he's an extraordinary surrogate in that regard, because there's very few people in Washington that understand how the world works better than Lindsey Graham.
Speaking of Washington, Jeb, this morning the Supreme Court making news, agreeing to review President Obama's executive action on providing a safe haven to at least 5 million illegal aliens. In your last interview, you said that the executive order was improper, unconstitutional. Meanwhile, Marco Rubio came out on Meet the Press saying if illegals have not committed a crime while they're in the U.S., they should stay here. What do you think of the Supreme Court decision, and what's the difference between your position and that of Senator Rubio? Can you sum it up in a minute for us?
Yeah, I don't know what Marco's position is on the DACA and DAPA executive order, but I don't believe that the president has the authority. And I think the Supreme Court will overrule them. If the president believes that there should be some treatment for DREAM Act kids that's different than their parents or other illegal immigrants, then he needs to go to Congress. That's our democracy. He can't do this by executive order. He doesn't have the power to do it. And this is one of many examples where the president, I think the gun issue is another most recent example, but there are many others, the EPA rules, where he has gone way beyond what the delegated authority that Congress has granted him, or gone beyond what the powers of Article 2 of our Constitution has granted him. And the net result is people don't believe that Washington is working for all people, just for those that have access to power. And we've got to fix that. We need a more humble president that respects the Constitution and appoints an attorney general that won't trample over the Constitution either, and works with Congress, for crying out loud. This system right now is completely broken. You cannot do this by executive powers. Barack Obama is not a Latin American president that can do things by decree. He has to work with Congress, and he stopped doing that a long time ago.
And unfortunately, Jeb, I think our time with you is up. Your campaign staff says you have some other appointments, but we very much appreciate your time live tonight on Newsmax TV. We hope you'll do it again. Make a habit of it in the days ahead.
God bless you, JD. Thank you very much.
And you too, sir. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush on the campaign trail in New Hampshire with a lot of comments on a lot of stories. And as we just heard, the governor talk about what President Obama has done by executive orders. He believes it to be clearly unconstitutional. He welcomes the fact that the case will be tried in the Supreme Court. He also spoke encouragingly of where his campaign is right now in New Hampshire. In second place, according to one poll in the Granite State, he says that he believes he has the momentum to get things done. That'll do it for this live interview. We now are prepared to return you to regularly scheduled programming here on Newsmax TV. Thanks so much for watching.